Welcome back to the West Georgia Gridiron Podcast. This is week 4 of the Warmup. I'm your host, Mason Taylor, and as always, I'm joined by my father, my co-host, my producer, Mark Taylor.
Well, we're continuing in the non-region play. Everybody's playing, I think, except for Herd County. They're on a bye week this week, Mason. So we're going to get into week 4 warm-up, and that is our preview for upcoming Friday night games. So what's ahead is Fan Zone, Game of the Week, Mason's matchups, of course, for his predictions, and then we're going to do a new segment called Faith+Football. And we've got some fan mail, those that have been following on social media, and they were responding to this statement. There's nothing like football Fridays in West Georgia. Neil Aubrey, Pastor Neil out in Glenlock, says, keep up the good work. Love the Herd County coverage. Jaden Aki, football player with Mount Zion, says, you're very welcome, and I appreciate the love and support you have for the game. And then Jensen Barker says, 100%, thank you for what you do. John Quinn, who actually gave us some love on one of his posts recently and tagged us, said, no doubt we got to get some Haralson County coverage. If I can help you out any way, let me know. And then last but not least, Cam Wood, the running back for Carrollton Trojans, who had an outstanding game against the Rome Wolves. He had 2 touchdowns. He says, anytime, you're right about that. Game of the week, Football Fridays in West Georgia by GPB, has the Calhoun Yellow Jackets against the Cartersville Purple Hurricanes. Mason?
Yeah, Calhoun, they're the number 1 team in 3A. They're obviously going on the road, taking on Cartersville. They're the number 2 team in 4A. It's going to be a really good game. Obviously, Calhoun, the reigning 3A state champions. This is actually going to be the first game that guys like Matt Stewart are going to be commentating on. All the previous games have been web games of the week, so either they've had no commentary or a commentary team that hasn't been the usual one. But yeah, I'm excited about this game. Obviously, Calhoun is a big test on the road for them. Cartersville's been pretty dominant. They beat the crap out of Hateville Charter, who Carrollton played in the scrimmage. So I think it's going to be a really good game, but obviously for us in West Georgia area, it doesn't have too much of an effect.
Yeah, and then West Georgia, of course, the game of the week here that you've called is Central Lions against the Rica Wildcats.
Yeah, this, I mean, all the games this week kind of lackluster. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of an easy week for most of the teams here, if not all the teams. Obviously, Herd County has that bye to get prepared for Bowdon, so that's one of the teams out of 9 that's not even in action.
We'll have a lot to talk about that week, for sure.
Right, but I definitely think this is going to be. I think it's going to be the best in terms of just that rivalry around here. Obviously, Bowdon, Bremen, they kind of got stuck in that week with Temple and Tryon, so that's why they weren't game of the week. But this is another rivalry that is still very relevant in the West Georgia area. Obviously, Carrollton doesn't play either of these teams anymore because that used to kind of be a triangle there. But this is my game of the week for sure.
All right, well, going into Mason's matchups, this is his predictions. This is how he sees the upcoming games, his previews. And Mason, let's start with first with Bowdon.
Right, so the 2-1 Bowdon Red Devils are going on the road for only the second time this season. It's the first time since that heartbreaking season opener when they lost 26-0 in Fellowship, which I'll get to in a minute. But so they're going on the road. They're going all the way to Macon to take on the west side. I believe they're the Seminoles. But some keys to success for Bowdon, obviously, one's going to be exploiting size and talent mismatches, and this is always going to be a factor, in my opinion, for Bowdon. Obviously, Caden Prothrow being 6'6" and just as a big of a nightmare as he is, he's a nightmare for their for their secondary. But he also plays linebacker, so he's a nightmare there as well. But Westside, they're giving up over 30. They've given up over 30 points in multiple games. So Josh Hopkins, Bowdon's quarterback, he's got to trust his playmakers and really let them win those one-on-one battles. My second key to success is going to be to keep quarterback Josh Hopkins balanced. Obviously, he's been excellent with both his arm and legs this season. He has 445 passing yards to pair with 292 rushing yards this season. So his dual threat ability can really stress Westside's linebackers, who, I mean, to be honest, their linebackers are solid tacklers, but they're not great in coverage. So design quarterback runs, RPOs, I mean, those looks to keep the defense guessing will be key. Obviously, got to win in the trenches. Bowdon's offensive line got guys like John Hart and Stuart Powell, Jace Turner, who I continue to mention. obviously major size advantage there. So if they can control the line, their offense is going to stay explosive. And then defensively, you got Lucky Bailey and Marcus Harper. They got to slow down that West Side run game led by running backs Talik Flint. And then lastly, they got to limit turnovers and big plays. Obviously, West Side secondary, they have pick six potential with guys like Syvion Hodges and their quarterback James Neville, who've already mentioned. He actually plays both sides of the ball. He's a very dangerous defensive back as well. So Hopkins, I mean, so far this season, he's only thrown one interception. So that, hopefully the Bowdon Red Devils can keep it that way. For West Side, they got to slow the tempo. Obviously, Bowdon is going to want to score fast and often. So West Side's got to use Tyleek Flint, their running back, and their quarterback James Neville on long grinding drives to eat the clock and shorten the game. I think if Bowdon can run, let's say, 55 or more plays, I think West Side's defense will wear down. 2, win in the trenches with the defensive front. Kenneth Hoggs, and this is a guy that kind of jumps off the stat sheet for West Side. He's got 29 tackles, 7 tackles for loss, 3 sacks so far for West Side. I mean, and in my opinion, he's their best shot at disrupting Bowdon's rhythm. I think he needs to live in that backfield and force Hopkins off script if West Side wants any chance of winning this game. I think if the front 7 can generate pressure without blitzing, they might be able to steal possessions. Thirdly, I think they need to force mistakes in short fields. West Side's best chance is defensive playmaking, turnovers, strip sacks, pick sixes. So Kenneth Hoggs and Syvion Hodges, those are the X factors for West Side. And the special teams, they also can't just give Bowdon cheap points. And then lastly, take shots to stay in it. I think if Bowdon loads the box to stop Tyleek Flint or James Neville, James Neville is going to need to connect on some of those deep passes to guys like wide receiver Paul Risper or wide receiver Jaden Williams. And even if they don't hit consistently, I think the threat keeps Bowdon's safeties honest. Kind of my extra notes here. One, I would say the talent gap. Bowdon, they have more proven playmakers, and their stars like Caden Prothro and Josh Hopkins, they're elite. West Side has some strong defensive pieces, but their quarterback play and scoring inconsistency are major concerns. So I think if Bowdon gets ahead early, I think West Side is not able, and they're not built to chase points. So I think if West Side can drag this into a low-scoring slugfest, they'll have a chance. But I think here's the wild card. I think if West Side's defensive front forces turnovers, they could flip momentum and make it tighter than expected. But here's kind of my outlook on just this matchup in general. I think Bowdon looks dominant against weaker teams. They handled a solid Bremen squad easily. Obviously, the shutout loss to Fellowship Christian has shown that Bowdon has struggles against elite competition so far this season. But I don't think West Side's quite in that elite tier that Fellowship Christian is, obviously. West Side, they play in a bigger class. They play in 2A, but they haven't looked consistent. I mean, they got shut down by Westover. They got blown out by Prince Avenue Christian, which a lot of teams do get blown out by Prince Avenue Christian. But their defense is leaky. In the 3 games that they've had this season, they gave up 43 points, 30 points, and then 34 points. So they haven't given up under 30 points yet this season. But Bowdon, they've shown that they can drop 40 or more points on average teams. West Side, they've given up 30 or more in every loss, and they haven't scored well versus solid defenses. I expect Bowdon's offense to roll, and I expect West Side's defense to give up big plays. I think West Side may sneak in a couple of scores at home, but I think Bowdon's defense should control most of the night. So with that being said, my score prediction for this game, I have the Bowdon Red Devils advancing to 3-1 on the season, winning 35-17 on the road.
Is there one key dominant thing that they did against Bremen that was so good that is unstoppable? West Side has no chance.
Oof. Well, I would say
Or is it a person? Is it Prothro? Is it?
I would say Josh Hopkins is really a difference maker because if I'm correct, I might be wrong on this, but if my memory serves me correct, I'm pretty sure on like the first play of possession for Bowdon in that Bremen game, he had like a 75-yard rushing touchdown just right off the gate. So when you got a guy who can unload it deep to a 5-star or to Jonah Wilson or to Jet Abrams or Micah Patterson, etc., and then at the same time he can run 75 yards for a touchdown just like that, and he has a huge offensive line to help him, obviously that's a game changer. And he's got that size of like a Bryce Young. He's only about 5'10". He's only about 170, 175 pounds. So he's very agile, and obviously he's a dual threat. So that's if their defense can pressure him, well, okay, but can you contain him?
Yeah, and if they put up those points quick, like you said, well, I think that's going to be hard to play catch up against such a good team. And then the Bremen Blue Devils.
Right, this is actually Bremen's homecoming. They're having it quite early. I know Ramburn's also having their homecoming this Friday. But yeah, this is their homecoming game. You don't want to lose on homecoming. It's like the saying goes, there's always 2 games in the year you don't want to lose.
Early for homecoming. Right?
Yeah, I mean it's only week 4.
Okay.
But it's like they say, you don't want to lose homecoming and you don't want to lose senior night. And a lot of these teams, they do senior night more traditional, where it's the actual last home game of the regular season. And for teams like Haralson County and Temple and Bremen, especially those teams, a lot of those last home games are against each other, and those are games where it's going to be close and you don't want to lose. But
you remember a homecoming here in West Georgia where a team lost?
No,
I don't either. No. I know Carrollton.
No, they'll schedule easy people to beat, and that's how it should be. You don't want to lose on homecoming. That's just sad.
Right.
It's just demoralizing. But anyways, they're playing. Bremen's playing McNair. McNair, we've already covered them once. They played Temple week 1, so now they're traveling.
An Atlanta team, maybe.
Yeah, they play in Atlanta. So obviously now they're coming down to Bremen to pay them a visit. They only lost by 20 or 29 to the Temple Tigers, 69-40. That was that wild card game. But for McNair, obviously, I'm going to start off with their key to success. They got to let Tay Phillips create. Phillips, he's the engine of that offense for the Mustangs. 475 rushing yards, 484 passing yards. He has, I believe, 2 interceptions on defense. But he has thrown 4 interceptions as well, with 5 touchdowns. So he's kind of shaky. But he's got to limit those turnovers. He's got to lean on his legs to extend those drives. Obviously, design QB runs and quick passes to guys like wide receiver Rashad Blaylock can stress Bremen's defense. Blaylock, he has 338 receiving yards this season. Secondly, you got to exploit Bremen with speed and space. Obviously, Bremen's physical, but I think McNair can challenge them with tempo and perimeter. You got screens, quick slants, misdirection runs. Maybe those can get a few chunk gains for them. Thirdly, get defensive stops by aggression. McNair's defense gives up way too many points. We saw that in the Temple game. They gave up almost 70 points, pretty much 70 points. So to hang around, they're going to need some game-changing plays, those interceptions, those forced fumbles, those sacks, anything to get that momentum high. We saw in the Carrollton Rome game, sacks get momentum high. Jameer Adams, he's got on this defense 10 tackles for loss, 2 sacks. I mean, he's a key player for that Mustang defense. So he's got to disrupt Bremen's backfield, and he's got to keep them behind the sticks. And then lastly, special teams and short fields, one we always got to talk about for every team. Bremen's got a top punter in the nation / kicker and Carter Allen, so McNair's got to avoid long field situations. A big return or takeaway on special teams could be their best chance to flip momentum, and obviously when you got a guy who's a top 10 punter in the nation punting to you, it's most likely going to be pretty hard to make anything off of that
now
punt.
If they can just get it down in short yardage, though, and have them start close to their end zone, I think
of course. For Bremen, first you got to establish offensive rhythm. You got to do that early. Bremen, they dropped 70 on Jordan, obviously, whatever. But that shows they can score in bunches against weaker defenses, and the game plan should be to lean on their size up front and to pound McNair's defensive front until they wear down. Second, feed Justin Faulkner, and this is like, if I'm going to make a comparison here, I would say the Kent Boyd of Bremen. I mean, he's their star player. He's their X factor.
Saying a lot, Mason.
It is saying a lot. I don't know if he's put up the numbers that he's definitely not put up the numbers Kent Boyd's done this season, but he is their star player offensively, in my opinion. I think that would be the opinion of a lot of other people. He has 7 touchdowns in just 2 games already, and he plays wide receiver and defensive back. He's obviously their most dynamic weapon, in whether deep shots, quick slants, gadget plays, it doesn't matter. He can break the game open early. So I think McNair's secondary, you got Tay Phillips, who we've already mentioned. You also got a guy like Dwayne Giles. They're opportunistic, but they are inconsistent. So I think Justin Faulkner could feast off of that, off of those inconsistencies. Thirdly, you got to win the field position battle with Carter Allen, who I've already mentioned. Bremen should control field position on special teams, forcing McNair into long fields. It's going to make it nearly impossible for their inconsistent offense to keep pace. And lastly, you got to stay disciplined defensively. Obviously, Tay Phillips, he's going to try to improvise. Rashad Blaylock, he's obviously a big play threat. So Bremen's linebackers, you got guys like Chase Palmer, Ryder Haynes. You got guys in that secondary like Jay Sean Jones and Thacker Dudley. I mean, they got to contain these scrambles by Phillips, and they got to avoid giving up busted plays. And when you got a game like this, you could say it's a trap game. I don't know if I'm going that far. Obviously, Hoko, so spirits are going to be high. They're going to treat this like a Jordan game where it should be 70-0 or whatever the case may be. But you got to be able to execute. You can't come out here with just all the confidence in the world and just play sloppy. But talent and depth gap, obviously Bremen has the bigger line. They got the deeper roster. They got the more reliable special teams. So McNair is going to rely heavily on two playmakers, Tay Phillips and Rashad Blaylock. We've already mentioned them multiple times. So I think if Bremen can contain them, McNair really doesn't have enough depth to really adjust. Game flow, I think Bremen should be able to pull away by halftime if they score on their first 2 to 3 drives. I think McNair needs turnovers and explosive plays just to stay alive. And then wild card, I think Tay Phillips' ability to extend plays. I think if Bremen's defense over pursues, maybe McNair could score a couple of unexpected long touchdowns. But here's kind of the overall picture here. Bremen destroyed a very weak team in Jordan. They got crushed by an elite team in Bowdon. So we don't really have a true middle test yet for the Blue Devils, but I would put them in the lower mid-tier of 1A Division I. I think McNair has a porous defense. They gave up 69 to Temple. They've also given up 33, and they barely beat a very low-rated 4A team. So their offense can score some points against soft defenses, but they struggle badly when the opponent is even average. So Bremen should comfortably handle McNair. I don't think McNair's defense they have allowed around 40 points a game, so that's not good.
No.
Bremen showed they can run it up against bad teams, obviously putting up 70 against Jordan, and then I expect Bremen to score 40 or more points. I think McNair might sneak in a touchdown or two, but I don't think they're going to be able to keep pace. So with that being said, I have the Bremen Blue Devils recovering from their pretty bad loss against Bowdon. I have them recovering and advancing to 2-1 on the year, winning their Hoko game 42-14.
Okay.
So with that being said, I have the Bremen Blue Devils advancing to 2-1 on the year, winning their Hoko game 42-14.
All right, and then of course we've got Carrollton Trojans against a team that I'm not even sure what we're going to actually have to say about this upcoming game. I don't expect a lot out of it. We say that seems like every week with Carrollton, but Rome was a little different. We did have some things that we had to say after that game for sure when you listen to the recap game. But with this one, they're hosting again.
Yeah, this is Carrollton's senior night. So obviously we had Hoko for Bremen. Now we're having senior night for Carrollton, and it's unorthodox because usually you think most teams have their senior nights the last home game of the regular season, like I've already mentioned earlier in the episode. But Carrollton, they have theirs early because they want to win. So they're going to go up against a team like Lithia Springs, who nobody really thinks much of. I believe Rica has their homecoming against Lithia Springs.
You remember last year's score for this
I believe
game?
It was 63-0. So,
yeah.
But for Lithia Springs, I'm going to start off with their keys to success, if there are any. Obviously, they got to maximize big play threats. Sean Williams, he's their offense's most explosive weapon. He has 102 yards on just 2 catches. Both of those catches were touchdowns, by the way. So he's going to need anywhere from those 8 to 10 reception range, including deep shots and quick screens.
Is that based on size, speed?
Yeah, I think he's around 6'3", about 200 pounds. So he's a big boy. He is a big boy. But I think if Williams can force Carrollton's defensive backs to respect him, I think it may open running lanes for Caleb McMichael and D'Angelo Shell, some of those running backs for the Lions.
Are they going to pick on Boyd?
I don't know, maybe, but I mean, I don't think I think it's unfair. I will say that Tyler Boyd got picked on, but he was going against 3 stars
in the Rome game.
Yeah, he was going against 3 stars. I mean, he's a sophomore. He's going up against 2 3-star seniors. I mean, that's
you
tough.
See this as an easy matchup for him then?
Well, I mean, it might not be easy. We'll see, but anytime you can get experience is good. It doesn't matter who it's against.
As long as they can stay away from the penalties on a PI,
right?
Be good.
Penalties has obviously been a real challenge for the Trojans this year. Had I believe 10 or 11 in that Rome game. Obviously, we thought they were some pretty bogus calls, but they had 13 against Columbia. So you got to get that under control.
Skill matchup probably wouldn't be a problem for DBs, but if we are caught with these penalties, then it's not going to go well.
Right.
Pause.
I don't know what you're talking about here. Just
hang on.
Let me get to the game, and then you can start commenting.
Right. Go back to some point.
Okay. So the first key to success for the Lithia Springs Lions, obviously got to maximize big play threats. Sean Williams, he's the offense's most explosive weapon. He has 102 yards and 2 touchdowns on just 2 catches. So he's made his receptions very important. He's made them very memorable. He's been able to capitalize on both of his touches so far. But he's going to need anywhere from 8 to 10 receptions. That can include quick screens, deep shots, doesn't matter. But I think if he can force Carrollton's defensive backs just to respect them, I think it may open running lanes for Caleb McMichael and D'Angelo Shell, some of the running backs there for the Lithia Springs Lions. Secondly, they got to control possession with the run game. Caleb McMichael and the young backs like D'Angelo Shell, I've already mentioned. You also got MJ Miller, who's only a freshman. Those guys got to grind out yards to shorten the game, and they got to keep Carrollton's offense off the field. Now, we saw that a lot with Columbia. Just had a big time of possession. Obviously, Rome, 35 minutes of possession. If they can get that done like these past teams have done, obviously you're not going to see Carrollton run up the score because they won't have any time to be able to do that. And that's kind of where that sweet spot is when you start having these runs and they're getting first downs and their penalties are extending drives and just being able to keep Carrollton's explosive offense off the field. That's where these teams are seeing success.
Kind of reminds me of the LSU Clemson game.
Oh. But then sustaining long drives, it's also going to protect Lithia's young quarterback from constant pressure because he's going to be pressured. If they play anything like that Rome game, he's going to be pressured. Thirdly, you got to get disruptive on defense. Carrollton's offense is way too talented to stop outright, so I think Lithia Springs, they're going to need some sacks and some turnovers to swing momentum. Trey Fulton, I'm kind of high on him. He has 12 tackles and a pass deflection. He's only a sophomore. I believe he's about 6'2", 200 pounds coming off the edge there. You also got Keo Wright. He has a TFL and a sack so far, so those guys got to lead the way up front for that Lithia Springs defense, and then they got to limit special teams damage. Carrollton has an explosive returner in Rontre Welch, who I'll get to later on, and Carrollton's key to success. And they also got a powerful kicker and punter in Julian Vargas. So those are just two guys on special teams that can do some damage. So I think Lithia's got to avoid giving up field position or special team scores.
How do you feel about Carrollton's special teams so far?
Obviously in that Wilbur game, they really exploded. That was a very good special teams day for them. Columbia, I think ever since that Columbia game, obviously Rome, you had the 99-yard kickoff return touchdown that swung momentum into Carrollton's favor. But I think they've gotten the job done. They've been good. I can't complain.
Do we have any block field goals?
Yes, Dorian Barney had a blocked field goal against Rome.
Yeah. Okay.
A key to success for Carrollton, one, you got to start fast and take away hope. Carrollton has overwhelming talent and depth. I think if they can score 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, I think it obviously forces Lithia Springs in catch-up mode, and they don't have the firepower to compete. So, secondly, obviously got to feed the playmakers. Ryan Mosley, Peyton Zachary, Cam Wood. Cam Wood, in just 3 games, has 5 touchdowns. Those guys got to see, and they probably will see plenty of touches. I think if Carrollton can spread the ball around, and obviously those guys aren't the only ones, but those are kind of the big 3 right there, in my opinion. I think Lithia cannot just key in on one player. It's going to be very hard for them anyway. And then thirdly, got to keep pressure on the quarterback. Lithia Springs' offensive line is undersized compared to Carrollton's defensive front, where you got guys like Zakai Helton, you got D.A. Logan, you got Mike Thomas, Caden Spratling, C.J. Gamble. I can go on and on. So I think if they can consistently collapse the pocket, it's obviously going to force rush throws and turnovers. And then fourthly, and lastly, dominate special teams. Rontre Welch already has a 99-yard kick return touchdown. Carrollton has a knack for blocked kicks. Had a blocked punt in the Woodward game. Obviously had a blocked field goal in the Rome game. So they can flip the game. they can flip the game and hit in yardage before Lithia really even realizes it. But obviously Carrollton has FBS commits all over the field. Lithia Springs has a couple of playmakers, but they really lack depth, especially in the trenches. I think Lithia Springs, they've got to slow the game down to stay competitive, but, in my opinion, Carrollton thrives in high tempo. So I think once Carrollton forces Lithia into passing situations, the floodgates could and should open. So, and then the wild card for me, I think if Sean Williams can get behind that Carrollton secondary early, it could give Lithia a spark. But Carrollton is too athletic in the secondary with guys like Dorian Barney, Tyler Boyd, even a guy like Aiden Rosemond, and they're too athletic to recover quickly.
As long as they don't get too aggressive in that backfield, and of course, minimize penalty.
Right. But Lithia Springs, they've looked inconsistent this season. They looked very poor against Lithonia, but they did bounce back with a nice win over Pebblebrook. But I think they're obviously bottom third in 5A. Carrollton, they're elite. They handled two top 10 5A teams, and I know that handled. A lot of people are going to go, well, they didn't handle Rome. They handled them. They got a handle on them. They won the game. No, enough said about that. I think Carrollton's state championship caliber, that might be a hot take. That might get some people a little frustrated. But I think they obviously are state championship caliber. They're averaging around 39 points offensively. They're giving up around 16 points. And that's against good teams. It's not against, cakewalk teams. Lithia Springs struggled badly against a weak 4A team in Lithonia. They haven't faced anyone close to Carrollton's level. So I expect Carrollton to score 50 or more points, and I think Lithia Springs will struggle to reach double digits if they can even get in the end zone. But with that being said, I think Carrollton advances to 4-0. I think they win on senior night at home, 52-7.
But you did not give much mention to Holtzclaw's quarterback or Cypher, two-headed monster, that dual quarterback situation they've got going on.
Yeah.
Is that just a given?
I think at this point it is. I think we've seen, obviously, 3 games in. I think we've seen enough. I think we've seen what it's like when the team is doing really good, and then obviously against Rome when the team is struggling, they're having to play from behind. That 2-quarterback system kind of falters a little bit, and you're really starting to have to rely on one guy, and we saw that in the Rome game with CJ Cypher kind of being the guy they leaned on there late in the game. To get the job done. I think both quarterbacks are capable of doing it.
Was that because Cypher was a better fit, or was there any struggle on what Holtzclaw was trying to accomplish?
No, I think, obviously I'm not a coach, so I don't know, but I would think from what I think would be logically right would be the reason they put him in was just because he was having a better game statistically. Okay. Yeah. I think obviously, I think both of them have the capability to get in the game and really get the win. Obviously, each guy brings 2 different capabilities and abilities. I think Cypher is more a more pure passer. Holtzclaw is more of I'm going to run it down your throat as well. He's more of a dual threat, but
it gives them options. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think obviously when it's a close game like that, that's where that two quarterback system kind of falters. But really, I can't complain about either one of them, to be honest. So far this season, neither of them have turned the ball over. Knock on wood.
It's a unique situation for sure.
Yeah. So now my game of the week, Central. They're hosting the Villa Rica Wildcats. I'll start off with Villa Rica. Firstly, they got to finish drives. They're coming and before I even get started, they're coming off of a bye week, so they've had essentially 2 weeks to prepare to go on the road, take on Central. Obviously, they're 0-2 on the season. They lost to Northgate in a close one. They lost to Troup County, just barely double digits on the road. So they're going on the road for the second time to take on.
Are they coming into Central with any intimidation?
I'm sure they are a little intimidated, but I think they're also very hungry for a win. Okay. And they want some respect to be put on their name. But
they're the Wildcats.
But another thing is they're going to have to earn it.
Wildcats against the Lions.
Respect is earned, not given.
I like it.
You got to finish drives. Villa Rica, they've moved the ball, but they have struggled to put points on the board this season. Obviously, they only put up 9 against Northgate. So I think against Central's very stingy defense, because they've had 2 shutouts so far this season. The only game they even gave up points was against Oxford, and Oxford's a really good team. So I think red zone execution is going to be critical for Villa Rica if they can even get to the red zone. I think they got to convert opportunities into touchdowns instead of field goals or empty possessions. Secondly, you got to protect the quarterback. Matthew Eubanks, he's still developing, and his efficiency will drop further if he's pressured constantly. I know in one of the games he was, I believe, 11 for 24. You got big linemen like Jarius Shivers, who his brother plays at South Carolina, so obviously he's a big boy. He's probably about, 6'4", 315. Got Aiden Daunt also on that offensive line. So they're going to need to buy him some time against Central's defensive front, led by guys like Tay Crowder, Ben Hobbs, Walker Britt, and those are some big boys on that defensive line. Thirdly, you got to establish a run game. Emmanuel Ajayi and Raekwon Flippin, they've shown some flashes, but they're going to need some consistent games to keep Central's defense honest. I think if Villa Rica becomes one-dimensional, Central's defensive backs, guys like Jake Ivester and Tyson Rochester, they're going to feast. And then lastly, big plays from athletes. Miles George, Maxwell Garfield, and Kyeth Howard. I believe that's how you say his name. It might be Keith, but I'm going to say Kyeth. Kyeth Howard, they got to find space in the open field against an elite defense of Central. Chunk plays may be the only way Villa Rica can even score. So that's my key to success for Villa Rica. For Central, one, they got to control the trenches. Their offensive line, you got 3-star Sam Walker, you got Ben Hobbs, you got Tay Crowder. They should dominate up front. I think if they can win at the line of scrimmage, the Walton brothers, Jonas and Jace, they're going to break off explosive runs all night. Secondly, you got to spread the ball with Harris. J.R. Harris, he's been sharp. 3 games, 9 touchdowns, just 1 interception. Obviously, with multiple targets and guys like Lanston Simmons, Jake Ivester, and Avery Tanner, he doesn't really need to force throws. I think if he distributes early, Villa Rica won't be able to key on Jonas Walton, who they're going to key on him and him only.
Is this what you expected from Harris at this point in his career at Central? This is no surprise to you, or man, this guy is on fire right now.
Well, obviously he came in, he started as a freshman.
Yeah.
So when you got a guy that starts as a freshman and has as good of a freshman year as he did, because I believe his freshman year is the year they went 10-0 and lost in the quarterfinal. When that's done with a freshman quarterback, obviously you have some pretty high hopes for him in his career. So at this point, knowing after his freshman season what he did, no, I'm not surprised he's where he's at. I think he's one of the most underrated quarterbacks with Ethan Tisdale in the whole state.
All right, you heard that, Mr. Harris.
But I think the reason why is because one of his size, he's only 5'10". I think if he was taller in that 6'2", 6'3" range, there would be no doubt that he'd be talked about all over the state. And another thing is, I think being in 4A, not being one of the elite teams in 4A, obviously they're showing it a little more this season, but in the past, Central's not known to be an elite team all time. So obviously with that, and 4A as stacked as it is, they just don't get that much coverage. But I think now you're starting to see them getting a lot more coverage than they have been because they're so good. And him and Ethan Tisdale especially, they're going to start seeing some more. Really, this whole area in general is starting to see a lot more growth and a lot more exposure to recruitment and whatnot.
Awesome.
Obviously, they got to turn defense into offense. Central has athletes at all 3 levels of the defense. I think if they can create turnovers, obviously Jake Ivester already has a pick this season. Tyson Rochester, he's aggressive. He's pretty aggressive in the box. So those guys, they can set up short fields and really break the game open quickly. And then lastly, they got to stay balanced. Central's averaged around 41 points per game because they don't lean solely on the run or the pass. They really have a great balance. So I think if they can keep that balance, Villa Rica will not really have an answer defensively. Mismatch factor, Central has depth, star power, momentum. I think while Villa Rica feels like a gritty, I think while they do feel gritty, they are an incomplete team as of right now. I think Central's offense is too balanced, and its defense is just too disciplined for Villa Rica's inconsistencies to hold up. But Villa Rica's best hope, I think their best hope is to force an early turnover and hit a big play, maybe a deep pass or a big run or something to really shock Central and build confidence. But otherwise, I think it's going to be pretty one-sided by halftime. I expect Villa Rica to hang tough early, but once Central's offense finds rhythm and the defense locks down, the margin should grow pretty quickly. But Villa Rica, we'll talk about both of these teams this season so far. Obviously, Villa Rica, they've been pretty competitive but inconsistent. They can score. I mean, they put up 31 against Troop, but they also can get stuck in low-scoring battles.
It seems to be the last couple of seasons.
Yeah, but another thing is they've only had 2 games, so we're basing this off of just 2 performances, where all these other teams have 3.
It looks very reminiscent of the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, but overall they look like a middle of the pack 5A team. Really not too good, but not too bad either. Central,
Is that a good place to be in though? That you're in the middle of the pack?
No, it's not a good place to be, but I'd rather be middle of the pack than bottom tier.
Well, of course.
Central looks very strong. Very strong. They've shut out 2 solid opponents. They beat a top Alabama team on the road. Their defense has been dominant outside the Oxford shootout, and their offense is scoring efficiently. Obviously, I've already mentioned they're averaging around 41 points a game. So Central's defense, they've pitched, obviously, 2 shutouts. They're averaging only 11 points allowed per game. Villarica, they've struggled to finish drives. Bad sign against a stingy defense like Central. Central should control both sides. I think Villarica may break through once or twice. But I know this score is going to sound weird. It's going to sound weird, but I'm gonna say this. I think there's another game on here that I'm also going to talk about.
When you start having to qualify scores.
No. I think there's another game on here that's kind of the same situation. I think obviously Central has the potential to really blow the hinges off of this thing and just dominate Villarica. I think that they have the potential to dominate Villarica, but I'm going to give a more comfortable score as a prediction. I still think Central wins, advances to 4-0 on the year. Villarica stays winless 0-3, but I have Central only winning 35-10. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Central goes out there and puts up 40-plus points against Villarica, but I'm going to give a comfortable score prediction, 35-10 for the Central Lions.
Okay. Well, and then that brings us to Haralson County.
Yes.
Mr. Kemp.
Yeah. They're hosting Putnam County. It's only their second home game of the year. They're coming off of a road win against Greene County.
Where is Putnam?
Putnam County, I have no idea.
Oh. But, folks, you realize our geography is not strong.
Oh, it is strong. I just not my Georgia counties. Okay. Not really in that department. But key to success for Putnam County, they got to ride the backfield duo of Omarion Butts and Kamari Thomas.
That's unfortunate.
It's really unfortunate last name, young man.
All right.
But Omarion Butts, he's 293 rushing yards this season, 4 rushing touchdowns. Kamari Thomas, 171 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. I mean, those guys are the heart of that offense. So I think if they can get rolling early, it takes pressure off of their quarterback, Ethan Watley, and it really controls the tempo. Second, efficient quarterback play. Ethan Watley hasn't thrown much. He's only completed 8 of 16 passes for 173 yards, 2 touchdowns and an interception. So he's only had 16 attempts. He's completed half of those. Obviously, 2 touchdowns and an interception, like I've just mentioned. But he's got to take some timely throws to keep Haralson's defense honest. I think play action to guys like wide receiver Bryson Brown. He's got 2 receptions for 73 yards and a touchdown this season, or maybe even to Jason Smith, another receiver that can produce big gains. Next, you got to tighten defensive discipline. I think I know this defense has surrendered 46 points in the past in both of their last games, so 46 and 46. And it's not going to cut it against Haralson County. I think assignment discipline is key against Haralson's physical run game, especially with Kemp Boyd's versatility, being both a receiver and he's also able to run.
Can you believe we're even talking about Haralson County like this? They were 1-9 last season. They're 3-0 now.
Yeah.
They actually surprised you with your prediction that they were going to lose last week, by the way. But here they are, and you said it's probably Kemp. Not that they're the only great player on the team, but it's definitely, he was in the mix making that win happen. But I love that we're actually talking about that. There was a couple seasons ago when they were really good, and there was a lot of energy and excitement about especially going to the playoffs, and then not so good. Last year 1-9, but man, it feels like they're back.
Yeah, and definitely for Bremen, obviously it's early on in the season, but Bremen right now is shaking in their boots because that's a big rivalry, and Haralson County hasn't been in it in the past few years, and now if they're in that rivalry, it actually becomes a rivalry again, and it's tough for Bremen to have to see because you don't want to lose Bowdon and Haralson County in the same year. That's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it.
Folks, that could be interesting.
Yeah. Also, because Haralson County's in their region as well, so it's not just a rivalry, it's a region implication as well. But for Haralson County, obviously, the number one, it's about as obvious as the sky's blue, feed Kemp Boyd. Kemp Boyd, he's been the workhorse. He has 455 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, 2 receiving touchdowns. He gets it done on special teams as well as a returner. He's explosive enough to break the game open. I think if Putnam cannot contain him, Haralson obviously is going to stay in control. Second, dominate the trenches. Weston Baker, Jacob Kilgore, Walker Ward, all the others on that Haralson offensive line. That offensive line is a strength. Thirdly, they got to limit Putnam's running back production. Haralson's defense really hasn't faced a backfield as dynamic as Butts and Thomas, so I think if they can hold them under 100 combined rushing yards, that really forces Watley into passing situation, which favors Haralson's secondary, I think.
How confident are you that can actually happen?
We'll see.
No, it's not. We'll see. How confident are you that can actually happen?
Well, let me finish the prediction, and you'll see how confident I am.
You have an opinion.
No, you're
afraid to say.
You'll see how confident or not confident I am at the end.
Okay, well, let's get
my score prediction will say it all.
Ooh,
so
okay.
It's either going to be heavily in Haralson's favor. It could be not. I
now
don't know.
You were wrong.
Okay,
on 2 or 3 of these last week. So are you going to get this one right?
We'll hopefully.
Okay.
Well, hopefully. Well, yeah.
Ooh, a little insight right there.
Pause. I don't want to do that. I don't want to give him insight on that. Don't do that.
What?
I don't want to give him insight on the prediction before that.
No, you didn't say give a prediction. I'm just saying.
No, but if I gave it away just
a little
then.
teaser.
No. We'll start over from that. And lastly, they got to win special situations. Obviously, Haralson doesn't have flashy athletes across the board, but they're disciplined. If they avoid turnovers, win third downs, keep field position in their favor, they can ground out a win. Mismatch favor, Putnam is more talented skill position-wise, but I think Haralson's physical style and depth in the trenches really make it...
That's not going to go well here. Fans that are listening in Haralson County, the players, the coaches, everybody, cheerleaders are going to get on you for that one. The band may even write in and say something about that.
Oh, Lord.
All right.
But, I think Haralson's physical style and depth in the trenches really make it a tough matchup for Putnam. I think Haralson will want a grinded-out game. I think, it could be a 20-17 style game. I think Putnam's going to obviously try to use Butts and Thomas to set up explosive plays, not only on the ground, but also through the air. So I think the wild card here is Kent Boyd. If he breaks a long run early, I think Haralson can really set the tone for this game. I think if Putnam forces Haralson into obvious passing downs, advantage swings to Putnam. But kind of a season overview for Putnam, they've beaten a below-average team. But when they faced decent two-way squads, which they also faced Greene County, so both of these teams have faced Greene County. It was kind of a similar outcome for both of these teams. They kind of just both dominated Greene County, but they've been blown out by both of those decent two-way squads that they faced. Their defense has given up 46 points in back-to-back games. For Haralson, they faced 3 very weak teams, but they've been dominant. They scored over 28 in each game, and they've allowed only 7 points a game. So their defense has looked sharp, but they haven't seen a team as good as Putnam yet.
But it was a very emphatic, decisive win.
Yeah. They've all been blowouts. Haralson, they feasted on weak opponents. They haven't faced a team near Putnam's level yet. Putnam's defense is suspect, though. They've allowed 92 points in 2 games against decent opponents, which keeps Haralson in it. Haralson's defense is playing well, but Putnam's offense is stronger than anyone they've faced so far, like I've already mentioned. And it looks like a low to mid scoring battle, to be honest with you. I think Putnam just slightly stronger on paper. So, with that being said, I think the Haralson County Rebels get their first loss of the season, 24-20 at home against Putnam County.
Cut. We cannot. What Mason? That is not.
Look,
we can't do that.
Look, I don't want it to happen, but I think that's just I think that's
not
the
gonna
result.
happen.
I think that's the result.
Not gonna happen.
Look, prove me wrong. I wish they would prove me wrong, but I think if I had to put money on it, I'm not gonna say that. That's kind of facetious. That's arrogant. That's cocky. I'm not a cocky guy, but I do think Putnam County's gonna win 24-20. I want Haralson to prove me wrong, but I think it's going to be a really close game.
Didn't you say they were going to lose?
I had them losing 28-20 against Greene County. And
what happened?
They won 41-7.
Folks, I'm beginning to see a pattern
I'm
here.
not a Haralson County hater. I promise you I'm not.
Because he really likes Kim.
My great-grandma lived in Taupusa.
What's that have to do with anything? Did she play for them?
My roots are in Haralson County.
Oh, okay.
Kinda. My great-grandma was
really.
born in Bremen. That ain't. Well, it's Haralson County, kind of.
Good Lord, the wheels are falling off now.
Mount Zion, they host Chatooga. For Chatooga, we're going to start off with their key to success. They got to establish a physical identity up front. They actually have some big boys on that line. They got Reese, who's 6'4", 275, Caden Fife, who's 6'5", 295, and I believe he's a 4-star junior. So that's obviously Chatooga's best player. And they also got Coy Dodd, who's 6'7", 280 pounds. So Chatooga, they got some bodies to battle in those trenches. They got to lean on that side to create.
I'm 190, Mason. I can't imagine 280 pounds. Now I know at my age
we're also not 6 foot
anyway, but
you're also not 6'7".
6'7", 280. All right,
6'7".
That's gonna be a problem.
Okay.
Pause. Return. I only know where that came from.
Mount Zion, they host Chatooga. Key to success for Chatooga: first, you got to establish a physical identity up front. They got some size on that on the offensive and defensive lines. They got a 6'4", 275-pound pounder. They got Caden Fife, who's a 4-star, 6'5", 295. They got Coy Dodd, who's 6'7", 280. So Chatooga, they got some bodies to battle in those trenches. They got to lean on that size to create some running lanes and slow down Mount Zion's backs. Secondly, they got to get Chris Adams and Aiden Fletcher involved. Aiden Fletcher is their running back. Chris Adams, another running back, also kind of plays receiver. They need touches early to jumpstart an offense who's averaging just 3.5 points a game. So simple high percentage plays could help quarterback Brock Cooper settle in.
Be ugly.
Thirdly, they got to avoid drive-killing mistakes. The offense, they've struggled to sustain drives, false starts, turnovers, misassignments. I mean, those are just burying them, and it will bury them against a disciplined Mount Zion defense. And then lastly, lean on defensive playmakers. Caden Fife, he's the 4-star junior defensive lineman for Chatooga. He's got to wreak havoc in that backfield. So I think if Chatooga can get pressure without blitzing, they have a chance to slow Mount Zion's run-heavy attack. Speaking of Mount Zion, their first key to success: pound the rock with Rashad Montgomery and Keziah Aki. It's pretty simple. Montgomery, so far this season, 294 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns. Keziah Aki, 152 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. They've been the offensive drivers. A balanced ground game keeps the pressure off Knox Israel and controls the tempo. Secondly, speaking of Knox Israel, they're going to need efficient quarterback play. He hasn't been asked to throw too much this season. 9 of 18 for 98 yards and a touchdown. But he's a dangerous dual threat. He also has 172 rushing yards and a rushing touchdown. So if he keeps the chains moving with his legs and avoids turnovers, Mount Zion really stays in rhythm.
That's impressive.
Thirdly, you got to swarm on defense. This unit has only allowed 12 points in 3 games. Players like Brady Denny, who has 2 tackles for loss on the season, Damian Sanders, who has 13 tackles and a sack this season. Those guys got to continue setting the tone against Chatooga's big but underperforming line. And then lastly, spread the touches around. While Montgomery is the go-to back, involving playmakers like Xavier Buckner, who we finally got a taste of against Bethlehem Christian. He had 6 receptions for 73 yards and a touchdown. Playmakers like him and Keziah Aki, those guys are going to keep the offense from becoming too predictable. I know you like to comment about how Carrollton's too predictable a lot of the time. I don't know if you want to. Yeah, I don't even get into that, but don't want to be too predictable.
That's right.
The mismatch factor here, I think, is going to be Chatooga's size against Mount Zion's speed and execution. I think if size alone dictated outcomes, Chatooga would be much better. But I think their struggles suggest discipline and playmaking are lacking.
The only thing you need to be worried about with Carrollton and their predictability is that they are predictable to win.
28-21.
Ooh.
I'm just saying.
All right.
Three out of those 4 quarters, you didn't predict nothing to win.
We're talking about the Rome game?
Yeah.
Okay.
3 out of those 4 quarters look like Rome's going to win that game.
Okay.
Just saying.
It did.
Game flow for this game, I think Mount Zion's, they're going to want to grind with Montgomery and Aki. They're going to lean on that defensive control field position. I think Chatooga's, they got to find a way to generate 1 or 2 explosive plays to stay in it. The wild card here, I think if Caden Fife, that 4-star, I think if he dominates the trenches and forces Mount Zion into passing situations, Chatooga could keep the game closer than expected. But Chatooga, so far this season, they've yet to score more than 7 points. They've been outscored 55-7 in 2 games. Both opponents were low/mid-tier. which makes it especially concerning for them. For Mount Zion, they've beaten, kind of like Haralson County, they've beaten 3 weak opponents comfortably. They showed a competent defense, only allowing 12 points so far this season. So while their competition hasn't been great, they're taking care of business. I think, obviously, Chatooga's offense is struggling badly. Mount Zion, they've shown defensive strength, and they've scored enough to win comfortably. I think even if Mount Zion isn't tested yet, they should have a clear edge at home. And then I expect Chatooga to score once at most, while Mount Zion controls the pace. So with that being said, I have the Mount Zion Eagles, and I can't believe I'm saying this either, because I'm pretty sure they went 3-7 last year. I have the Mount Zion Eagles going 4-0.
4-0 for the Mount Zion Eagles.
With a 28-7 win.
Ooh, that community's happy right now. All right.
Lastly, the Temple Tigers.
I'm liking the Temple Tigers. That's electric over there right now, I'm telling you. Their social media looks really good. I don't know who's doing their social media, but it looks fantastic. I like how they're highlighting the players of the week and standouts and their accomplishments. But, man, I'm looking forward to this one.
Well, they're taking on a South Atlanta team that's already played Heard County. So, like McNair, another team that is kind of getting passed around between these teams. So, this will be a good indicator, though, too. Because
passed around or smacked around?
Temple, when they play South Atlanta, their outcome compared to Heard County's outcome against the team, but obviously it's different. South Atlanta is farther into the year than when they were against Heard County. Maybe they had some injuries. I don't know. But they're playing South Atlanta. So South Atlanta, first, they got to establish a ground identity. Daquan Alexander plays running back and wide receiver. You got Kai Mims, who's an athlete. They got to be featured early to keep Temple's offense off the field, which is going to be hard to do. Sustaining long drives is the only way to shorten the game. Secondly, they got a defensive front must disrupt. You got guys like Caleb Yarrell and Tavalis Harrell. Say that 5 times fast. They need to win battles in the trenches. I think if South Atlanta cannot slow JoJo Jones, the running back for Temple,
no way,
the game's going to get out of hand.
There's no way.
Got to play mistake-free football. The Hornets' offense has only 16 points in 3 games.
By the way, thank you, JoJo, for following us on social media.
Yeah, shout out to Sir JoJo Jones. They cannot afford turnovers or wasted possessions, and every trip across midfield has got to end in points for the Hornets. And then lastly, special teams impact. Eric Paredes, their kicker, he could be a weapon if South Atlanta keeps it close, and return units need to create short fields, but with such a struggling offense, hidden yardage is critical. For Temple, feed JoJo Jones and keep the run game rolling.
There he is again.
Jones already has 435 rushing yards and 11 rushing touchdowns in just 3 games, behind a strong offensive line led by guys like Dominic Alosi, Ryan Self, Junior Presley. Temple should lean on its power run game like they always do to wear down South Atlanta. Also, you got to balance with explosiveness. Quarterback Jackson Gribben and Jaden McDaniel, they add balance. Gribben has 147 rushing yards and 133 passing yards to go with 2 touchdowns.
Now, Jaden McDaniel we have not talked about a lot.
Right.
I think he's going to change that this game, but we've not given him a lot of mention. Is it because he hasn't put up the numbers?
Well, I was actually about to say his numbers: 219 rushing yards, 69 receiving yards, 5 total touchdowns.
Why are we not talking more about Jaden McDaniel? Now, we did point him out.
Well,
I
think it's
in one of the first couple of episodes as our standout player.
Yeah, I think it's tough because you got him and then JoJo Jones. And JoJo Jones has been doing spectacular in these past 3 games. So I don't think, obviously I don't want to say anyone gets overshadowed, but if he's not getting mentioned, I would say the reason is because JoJo Jones, and I don't want us to sound any sort of way, but maybe outperforming him.
But like you said,
it's a great duo.
Yeah.
You gotta stay disciplined on defense. Obviously, South Atlanta's offense is not explosive, but I think if Temple over-pursues or misses tackles, kind of like Bremen against McNair, it's kind of the same situation, they can keep drives alive. So players like Devin Tanner, who already has an interception this season, guys like Jack Jordan, who plays kind of off that edge and a little bit of linebacker, those guys need to set the tone for that defense. And then don't get caught looking ahead. Temple, they've been dominant. They could overlook a struggling opponent. So staying sharp and finishing strong will keep them in rhythm moving forward. And you could argue they kind of did that against McNair. Gave up 40 points when that should have been a team they should have just blown out. Obviously, offensively, they did the job, but defensively, they were struggling in that game. Obviously, the results since then have been a little bit different. But don't get caught looking ahead. And that goes for really any team, but especially in these games where it's going to be a blowout, or it's expected. And these are kind of different. Contrast in styles. South Atlanta, they're going to try and grind it out, but I think Temple has, or I don't think, Temple, they've nearly averaged 60 points a game offensively, which is
hard to believe.
It's insane. But I think if Temple scores early, South Atlanta is going to be forced out of their comfort zone. JoJo Jones factor. South Atlanta has no one on its schedule comparable to JoJo Jones.
We should do a whole show on JoJo Jones.
But yeah, South Atlanta, they have nobody on their schedules comparable to JoJo Jones. I think if he hits 100 or more yards and multiple touchdowns again, it's going to be
125 yards.
It's going to be a runaway for Temple if he does that. And game flow, I expect Temple to establish control by halftime. I think South Atlanta's best chance is to keep the first quarter scoreless and force some frustration. But South Atlanta, their defense is okay. I mean, they allowed 20 points and 7 points, but they allowed 55 points to Heard County, which is a red flag, but also it's Heard County. Heard County's really good, so but their offense has been anemic. 16 total points in 3 games. That's around 5.3 points a game. Temple, on the other hand, they've been explosive. They're averaging around 58 points a game, and even against a decent Tryon team, they won by 3 scores. So their defense isn't perfect. They gave up 40 to McNair, but their offense is overwhelming. So South Atlanta, obviously, they can't score consistently. They've been shut down twice already. Temple, they've proven they can score big on both weak and solid defenses. South Atlanta's defense may hold Temple under their 60-point explosions, but I think South Atlanta's weak offense makes it hard to keep up. I expect Temple to pull away by multiple scores at home, and this outcome is going to be similar to the Central one I mentioned earlier. I obviously think Temple has the potential to rack up the score against South Atlanta. However, I'm going to go with the more comfortable score prediction. I have Temple advancing to 4-0 on the year, but only winning 34-13.
Well, I mean, that's respectable. I can go with that. Is there any team in West Georgia out of the 9 that we normally highlight that is has the momentum going into week 4 that you just see right now, based on how they're playing, is a runaway train? They're a locomotive. There's no way to stop this team.
Well, funny you should ask, because obviously I have Haralson County losing, but at the same time, you can make an argument they're one of those teams.
They've got the momentum. More so than Temple Tigers?
Yeah, because I think based on how the season last year went for Temple, obviously Temple does have a lot of momentum, but I think based on the expectations for Haralson County were extremely low, and they haven't had this type of momentum in a long, long time. That's why I think it's different. I don't think it's necessarily that Temple doesn't have any, or that they barely have any, or that any other team around here doesn't. But Haralson County is just not it was not expected of them.
It's because the Carrolltons, the Centrals, we expect them to do well, so we don't see the momentum necessarily with them because they're always going to do well at first, at least. Heard County, who has a bye week, is playing amazing. I think that's my runaway train. Be honest with you, with all
I agree.
The 9 teams, that's the one that I see standing out the most.
I like that. And for Heard County, I think really where we're going to see that though is how does week 5 look again next week, because they have a bye week this week. They have 2 weeks to prepare to have Bowdon at home.
Yeah.
So how does that game look? I mean, we'll see my score prediction. I obviously wouldn't be surprised if Heard County won, especially them being at home, and it was only a 2-score game last year on the road at Bowdon. But I think that's going to be a really good game. I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, I won't be there because I'll be at the Carrollton Gainesville game, which
away game.
Yeah, that's another good game that week.
And you'll be a part of the Trojan Nation Network again in the booth, helping with the broadcasting. But
yeah, with Heard County, I definitely see them being a possible runaway train, but like Temple against Tryon, can they get past Bowdon first? If they can get past Bowdon, it's over from there on out. I really think that there's nothing to stop them. But it was like Temple. I think Tryon, that was their first big test of the year. Heard County, that's their first big test of the year, especially before region play starts.
Yeah, and we want to take a moment to appreciate and just say thank you to the Heard County fans, because y'all are coming in strong for the West Georgia Gridiron and following us on social media and the comments and likes. And so we appreciate that. We'll never take that for granted. So, Mason, does that wrap up? I think it does. Well, that's a great week again of predictions and previews from Mason. I appreciate that. And then we'll look forward to all the results on Monday's show. And I want to close out with something a little different tonight. This is a viral video and photo that was taken by USA Today High School Sports. This was in Houston, I believe, this area. This is two opposing teams, that two players praying together. And so we want to call this Faith in Football. And on occasion, not every week, but on occasion, we'll focus inspiration and motivation by those people that have maybe Christian faith. And then Heath Evans, who I follow on social media, has a great organization, Built Ready Coaching. He's a 10-year NFL vet. And he has a proverb a day to keep the stupid away, is what he says. But he points out from Proverbs that the proverb says the wise man keeps increasing in learning. But wisdom isn't just hearing more teachings or sermons at church or listening to more podcasts or reading more books. It's about letting those truths change you. And I want to be that encouragement to those players, coaches. Maybe you're in corporate America and you're listening in, but wise men and God's men want correction. They welcome counsel. They look for blind spots in their life and then rejoice when God and others point them out, and so they can correct those things, and we become better men. But the unteachable man sees correction as an attack, but the teachable man sees correction as a gift. That's an important lesson to learn. So here's the question for everybody that's maybe listening in. Who have you given permission to sharpen you with wise words and from God's word? So I think the lesson here is, don't just nod at today's proverb. Live it. Surround yourself around wise people and godly coaches, teachers, leaders that may be in your life who want to tell you the truth, Mason. And those that may be listening in, but also be humble enough to let it change you. And with that, we'll see you next time.
Y'all have Louisiana Tech. I don't want to hear it. Like, really?
Oh, that's not good. Well, we recorded.